Chapter 3 The Color of Fall. Amber awoke the next morning to the soft light of dawn filtering through her window. The faint chill of the autumn morning wrapped around her, and she could hear the faint rustling of leaves outside. Stretching, she slowly rose from bed, feeling more rested than she had in weeks. It was the first time in a long time while she hadn't been woken up by the relentless buzz of her alarm or the stream of early morning emails. The guest house she was staying in, tucked on the edge of Maplewood, felt warm and inviting. A small fire had been lit in the hearth the night before, the embers still glowing faintly as she padded across the wooden floor. Amber gazed out the window, taking in the view of the town in the early light. A thick blanket of gold and crimson leaves covered the ground, and the trees stood like silent sentinels in the cool breeze. Maplewood was enchanting in a way that made her feel like she had stepped into another world. Her thoughts drifted back to the park the day before, to Sam. The memory of their conversation lingered in her mind. She hadn't expected him to open up so much, to share the pain of losing his wife so candidly. And yet there had been no sense of bitterness in his words, just quiet acceptance, as though he had learned to live with the grief and keep moving forward. That strength, that quiet resilience, stirred something in her. Shaking her head, Amber dressed quickly, pulling on her coat before heading out. The crisp air nipped at her cheeks as she stepped onto the quiet street. The morning light made the town glow, and there was a certain magic to the way the leaves danced in the gentle breeze. She wasn't quite sure what she was pulling her out so early, but before she knew it, her feet were leading her back toward Main Street. By the time she reached the diner, the town was slowly waking up. The early risers were already inside, their low murmurs filtering through the windows. Amber hesitated for a moment, glancing through the glass to see Sam behind the counter, flipping pancakes while chatting with a customer. The soft light of the diner's interior gave everything a warm glow, and for a second it felt like stepping into a memory she hadn't lived yet. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the door, the familiar chime of the bell announcing her presence. Sam looked up, his face breaking into a smile when he saw her. "Morning," he said, flipping a pancake with practiced ease. "You're up early." Amber smiled, making her way to the counter. "I couldn't sleep in. The town's too beautiful in the morning." "Well, you picked a good day," Sam said, sliding a plate of pancakes onto the counter in front of a customer before turning back to her. "Got a fresh pot of coffee just brewed. Can I get you some breakfast?" "I'd love that," Amber replied, settling into a stool by the counter. "Coffee, too?" Sam poured her a cup of coffee, setting it down in front of her. His movements were fluid, practiced, like a man who had spent years tending to customers, yet his smile never seemed forced or tired. There was something undeniably comforting about the way he worked, something that made the chaos of her usual life feel distant and irrelevant. "So what's your plan for today?" Sam asked, leaning against the counter as he wiped his hands on a towel, exploring more of the town. Amber wrapped her hands around the warm mug, watching the steam rise. "I think so. I might check out the local bookstore and see if there are any events going on." Sam nodded, his smile lingering. "You'll like the bookstore. It's run by Miss Miller. She's been here as long as I can remember. The place is small but cozy, kind of like everything else around here." Amber couldn't help but chuckle. "I'm starting to get that impression." For a moment, they sat in comfortable silence, the quiet hum of the diner filling the space between them. Amber took a sip of her coffee, savoring the warmth, feeling herself relax. It was strange. She had only known Sam for a short time, but already there was something about him, about Maplewood, that felt familiar, as though she had been a part of this world all along. "I'm really starting to love this place," Amber said quietly, her eyes drifting to the window, where the morning sun glistened on the fallen leaves. "It's just different from everything I'm used to." Sam watched her for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "Yeah, I hear that a lot from visitors. Most people come through here expecting it to be just another small town, but Maplewood's got a way of surprising you." Amber met his gaze, and for a moment something unspoken passed between them, an understanding, a shared feeling of being drawn to the simplicity and the warmth of this place. There was a pull, something beyond the beautiful setting, something deeper. "You've been here your whole life?" Amber asked. Sam nodded. "Pretty much. Thought about leaving once, a long time ago. But then my dad got sick, and I took over the diner. Never left after that." He paused, his gaze distant, for a moment before returning to her. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I did leave." Amber tilted her head. "Do you regret staying?" Sam shrugged, his expression calm but reflective. "No, not really. Maplewood's home. It's all my kids have ever known, and the community's good to us. Sure, it's not perfect, but it's where I belong. And these days, I think that's what matters most." Amber smiled softly, understanding his sentiment more than she cared to admit. She had spent so long chasing success, constantly moving from one thing to the next, that the idea of belonging somewhere, of finding a home, seemed almost foreign to her. But here in this small town, with its golden leaves and quiet mornings, she was beginning to understand the appeal. As Sam moved to tend to another customer, Amber glanced out the window again, her heart feeling lighter than it had in years. Maybe, just maybe, she was starting to feel that pull towards something new, something real. If you like this chapter, please leave a comment and follow and subscribe. Make sure you stay tuned for Chapter 4 of The Color of Fall.